being a Black woman watching anime is an experience to say the least. If it's not certain fandoms questioning my validity as an anime fan, or my opinions being critiqued because I said something that goes against what other people think, or any other reason people can come up with besides literally saying you're Black so you can't be in the club. Black people also have to deal with the fact that usually most depictions of Black people in anime series tend to not be that great. And some are so terrible that it makes me wonder why I ride so hard for the medium in the first place.
Hell no, to the no, no, no.
But instead of rehashing what friend of the channel, Basic Boy, put in his video about the topic of anti-blackness in anime, I'm going to focus instead on depictions of Black women in anime, most of which tend to be actually pretty good and done with some level of respect, even when they still fall short in some areas. Welcome anime friends, happy Black History Month. My name is Phoenix. Before you begin though, before you even grab your cup actually, I also want to say that I stand with the people of Palestine, I stand with the people of Sudan, I stand with the people who are going through situations that are just horrendous, that are being attacked, that are going through genocides. I've been doing research on different programs and websites and things to learn information about what's happening, and I'm going to be linking them in the description down below if you want to check them out as well. And I also just want to say, just because we're anime fans, just because we're manga fans, just because we talk about fun, entertainment, and media, doesn't mean we don't have to acknowledge what else is going on in the world. Please educate yourself and share the information. If you can, now let's grab our cups because it's time to spill the anime tea. Shinichiro Watanabe is known for his works inspired by American music, most of which is deeply rooted in Black American culture, such as using jazz as the backdrop for his Space Bounty Hunter series, Cowboy Bebop, or hip-hop in his series that remixes Japanese history, Samurai Champloo. In fact, if Watanabe's name is on a series, even if he's not the director, you're guaranteed to hear a memorable or unique soundtrack. Not only that, but his works are known to include diverse characters with various skin tones and ethnicities ranging from places from as far and wide as space to the historically isolated Japan with their quiet history of mostly underrepresented native people from various lands and islands. But despite how much inspiration Watanabe often took from American culture, it still came as a huge surprise to hear that one of the characters in his newer series, back in 2019 of course, would be a Black girl. Let me say that again for y'all in the back. A Black girl was going to lead a Shinichiro Watanabe work. This was a huge freaking deal. Carole and Tuesday is a series set on Mars about two girls who become musical soulmates despite how different they are. One a refugee from Earth, the other a daughter of a politician with an anti-immigration agenda. It follows a journey of the two trying to become authentic musicians in a futuristic city set on Mars where most music is created by AI. Carol Stanley is an orphan originally from Earth who was sent to Mars at a young age. Growing up mostly alone, she learns to take care of herself by taking on various part-time jobs, many of which she gets fired from because of her straightforward personality. Despite her background, she's a genuinely optimistic person who takes things in stride and isn't afraid to stick up for herself. She plays keyboard and makes melodies, which is how she ends up finding her musical soulmate Tuesday one afternoon when she performs on a bridge. She also has a tomboyish nature and style, opting to skateboard through the streets of Mars to get places, and dressing in overalls and Timberlands as her preferred outfit. Speaking of Carol's style, her character design is also surprisingly beautiful. I only say surprisingly because Black characters in anime tend to be based on a certain misunderstanding of how Black people should be drawn. Carol's design is clearly representative of a Black woman. Though simple, she has traits like a more defined nose and more defined lips, as well as, of course, most importantly, her hair. Carol's hair is put into locks, and even when we see images of Carol in different areas of her life, like when she's younger, we see her rocking other kind of traditionally Black hairstyles, or at least hairstyles that Black women often wear, including like the double buns and the curly fro bun on top of her head. Which I do appreciate because Black women anime characters don't always get like Afrocentric hairstyles, as you know, anime tends to opt for like straight hairstyles like with most of their characters. It's nice to see that Carol is more of a representation of a person and not a caricature, which is how we often unfortunately see Black representations in other anime series. But I think for the most part, character designer Eisaku Kubo Nouchi did a great job designing not just Carole, but most of the characters in the series. GGK is another singer that we get to see in the series for a couple episodes, and she's kind of this ephemeral girl who's drawn to the universe. I appreciate that she also looks physically different from Carole and other Black characters because her facial structure is different, and of course her hairstyle is different. Not only were the character designs given a fair amount of consideration, but so were the musical voices behind them. Since Carole and Tuesday is an anime about music, and because Watanabe expressed wanting to make it a universal series that a lot of people could find and listen to and relate to, a lot of English musical talent was chosen, including the singing vocals for Carole done by American artist Nye Brix, Brianna Maddox, which adds an additional level of representation to her character. There is only one other example that I can think of a Black woman providing vocals for a song that was used in an anime. Hazel Fernandez doing the vocals for Ichiko's theme track, titled #1 for the series Bleach. And not only was Nye Brix's voice as Carole in Carole and Tuesday a big deal, but there are also multiple other Black creators who were the vocals for characters in the series as well. For example, GGK, my favorite ethereal girl, had her vocals done by Black American artist Madison McFerrin. Ezekiel, aka Amir, both of his raps were performed by Denzel Curry, and Skip's song was performed by Thundercat. Carole as a character is enigmatic and likable. She's strong-willed yet emotional, and she sings with quiet passion. Carole, at her simplest form, is a beautiful representation of a Black girl in anime, and definitely the most wholesome out of the lineup of the very few Black female leads in anime, and especially out of the ones that I'm going to be talking about. And I am hesitant to criticize her character because of how much I hyped her up. But despite how happy I was and continue to be to see Carole on screen singing her heart out, melanin reflecting in the golden light the series loves to shine on her, Carole and other characters in the series that represent diverse people are still flawed. I hate to say it, but Carole falls into a stereotype. Specifically, the strong Black girl who can take care of herself, her being an orphan, her father said to have been imprisoned. But if you're unfamiliar with Black representation in media, these aspects on the surface don't sound like such a bad thing, and honestly, they wouldn't be if it wasn't for the fact that these narratives have been used hundreds of times in media to depict Black women, to depict Black people in our stories. And though yes, this can reflect real Black women's experiences, this can reflect real Black people's experiences, it is not every Black person's story. It makes it seem like Black women can't also be more like Tuesday, who is more reserved and awkward and shy. She kind of gives off the energy of a stereotypical shoujo girly in a romance series. I honestly, personally related more to Tuesday than Carole because she's soft-spoken, because she likes to be girly. And even Nye Brix, vocals for Carole, says she initially related more to Tuesday as well.
Towards the beginning of everything, I felt like me and Tuesday were more alike. And then as I got to watch the show and it started to progress, I feel more and more like Carole, or at least I'm growing into someone like Carole.
But also says that she would like to be more like Carole. And honestly, I agree. Like, Carole's outlook on life is inspiring, but the series often makes it seem like her strength and independence is all she is. And we never really get to see her flaws or insecurities, or even her internal motivations as to why music is so important to her, as to why Tuesday is important to her, or even what is important to her beyond music. My point is not that Carole as a character is inherently bad. It's just that she lacks depth and nuance, which honestly is something that not only afflicts Carole, but also Tuesday. They both seem to be lacking depth, which is a little bit disappointing because they're literally the main characters. For one of the only anime series that has a Black woman lead that is actually anime, I couldn't be too disappointed in her shortcomings because at least she exists. If her existing at least shows that Black women in anime are worthy of being in the spotlight, then I think her existence is still important, and I deeply appreciate it. Fortunately, I can't say the same for the LGBTQ plus representation in Carole and Tuesday. I don't think that the inclusion of the characters provided good representation and highlighted the existence of these people in a positive way. Unfortunately, don't have time to cover that in this video, but there are several articles that I read through. You should go read them. I'm going to leave them in the sources list in the description, and maybe this will be a possible video in the future. But moving on to another series that would explore the complexities of stereotypes of Black women in a way that is so flawed it's almost perfect would be another series that Shinichiro Watanabe had a hand in creating. Michiko and Hatchin is a story about the rawness of womanhood written by a woman inspired by the raw beauty of South America. Following the story of a young girl named Hana abused by her foster parents, who one day gets rescued or kidnapped, depending on your perspective, by a woman claiming to be her mother, Michiko Melandro. Together, the two go on a manhunt to find Hana's father and Michiko's lover, Hiroshi Marinos. Though Watanabe's biggest contribution to the series was just its soundtrack, which is incredible by the way, elements of his style are still all over the series, especially since it's a story that focuses on the characters first and the adventures they go on leading up to like a main ending, like many of his works tend to do. Which makes sense because the actual director of the series also worked on Samurai Champloo with Watanabe. You may not know her name, but you might know another series she is famous for creating and directing, Yuri on Ice. Before she made fans fall in love with the romantic ice skating series though, Sayo Yamamoto created Michiko and Hatchin, a series that was initially inspired by an unsettling trip to Mexico that she wanted to use as the backdrop to a story that Japanese people didn't often see. But the setting for Michiko to Hatchin is actually Brazil, which Yamamoto says she was inspired to pick because of how vibrant and stylish that it is, which definitely reflects in the endlessly stylish and vibrant story of Michiko and Hatchin. This anime is one that even if you've never watched the series, you're probably familiar with its characters, especially if you are in Black anime spaces online at all, because the characters are often used as profile pictures. This is because the characters of Michiko to Hatchin are regarded as some of the best depictions of Black people in anime. I can't speak to how well or poorly this series actually reflects the nature of women in Brazil or of Brazil itself. I can speak to the design and characteristics that are prevalent in my own area of diaspora of Black womanhood. Starting with one half of the titular duo, Michiko Melandro. She is not a good person by any means. She is stubborn, she's headstrong, she's reckless, and she's violent. She's also a literal criminal that has escaped prison, despite serving time for a crime she may have not committed. But it is all these elements of Michiko's character that makes her so chaotic, but also fun to watch. There's rarely a dull moment when Michiko is on screen. But if there is a moment where she is quiet or contemplative for any reason, it stands out because she's often not like that. And usually when we see her like this, it's because she is being exploited by her biggest weakness, which is men who claim to love her, aka boys. And it's honestly seeing how her weakness affects her that subverts a lot of Michiko's stereotypical behavior. It really takes its time exploring the nature of these two characters as individuals and together, which is something that I wish we got more of in Carole and Tuesday's story. We could still acknowledge the fact that Michiko is also based off of a lot of stereotypes, such as the idea that Black women, Latin women, often are thought to be loud, belligerent, boyish, strong, independent, difficult, etc. Lots of mostly not great things. And Michiko is all of these things. And it doesn't mean that it's still not kind of stereotypical and kind of hurtful to see that like Black and brown women are only seen this way. But because she's the biggest focus in her story, she doesn't feel entirely weighed down by her stereotypes. And the other people in her life remind us that yes, Michiko's flawed. She is deeply flawed. But they still end up caring about her. Another aspect of Michiko that's explored is her role as a mother figure, which Michiko is terrible at. She's essentially still a child at heart, but she's in an adult body. She is a woman child. And Hatchin is an actual child because she literally turns 10 in the middle of the series. Michiko and Hatchin have a turbulent relationship where both of them struggle to express how they're actually feeling throughout the entirety of the series. And their relationship by no means is good or even healthy at times, as the two express their emotions through violence, through slapping each other and stepping on each other's toes. But they always find a way to make it back to one another, and they take care of each other in their own flawed ways. Atsuko is Michiko's best friend turned enemy, but she's also deeply in love with Michiko. Something that Michiko unfortunately points out in like the most homophobic way possible. But despite how Michiko addresses Atsuko, Atsuko still gets a lot of agency in the series. We learn so much about her because of her relationship with Michiko. Atsuko is also violent and also stubborn, which you could say is stereotypical, but it's in a way that's different from Michiko. We see that her stubbornness comes from her inability to let Michiko go. And we see that she's violent because that's the only way she can get Michiko to notice her. But whenever she's given the opportunity to actually hurt Michiko, she does not hurt her. And we often see how her feelings outweigh her duty as a police officer to capture Michiko and bring her back to prison. The level of complexity to Atsuko and her sexuality makes her a really robust character that I was surprised to find in this series that highlighted women who are obsessed with men, but also exploring like being gay and in love with a straight woman. It's the crushing nature of this fact, and then the fact that of course they also live in a world, in a society that is also dominated by men who use and abuse women. And another great side character who really is only in a few episodes, but I think deserves to be talked about, is Rita. Rita is a girl who is the same age as Hatchin. They're both around 10 years old. The first thing the series points out is the differences between Rita and Hatchin. Most importantly, the overt sexuality of Rita compared to Hatchin, which is why they mentioned that she's like already on her period and Hatchin is not. Shows how like Black girls are often sexualized. Their bodies mature faster sometimes, and therefore men sexualize them, and therefore they have to learn like at an earlier age how to navigate in a world where men want to like use and abuse you. And it sucks, like it's terrible, but it is real. It does happen. I think mostly the series wanted to kind of use her as a way to double down on the fact that no matter how mature or immature or young or old you might be, you're a girl in the world of Michiko and Hatchin. You're more than likely in love with a man who doesn't love you. The fact that Sao Yamamoto took direct inspiration from the diverse people of Brazil and South America really gives the characters in Michiko to Hatchin more life. Each of the characters is unique not just because of anime design principles, but because they are also reflective of real people. Brazilian people are diverse. Some people have Eurocentric features, some have Latin American features, some have Afrocentric features, and Michiko and Hatchin reflect this diversity in its cast. Especially this is seen through hair texture and style. Yamamoto also mixing in a little bit of Japanese, I think even Chinese culture into the designs and the names. Also a fun touch. The characters in Michiko and Hatchin are the most fashionable characters I have ever seen. I don't believe there's a single episode where Michiko or Hatchin repeat an outfit in the series. At a glance, Michiko and Hatchin might seem like a series for men because of the openly sexual nature, but it's not. It's a show made by a woman about the complexities of womanhood. It's really a story for women outside of the male gaze. Similar to how The Boondocks is often said to be a show for Black people outside of the white gaze. The series is by no means perfect. I mean, we still have to acknowledge that this series comes from a perspective of a woman who just visited Brazil and the places that Michiko and Hatchin is inspired by. She is not representative of the people who are actually from that area, and so her perspective will always kind of be from an outside perspective, and that probably leads to flaws and things inherently that I can't even talk about because I am also not from that area. But one recent series that made sure to include Black women in the character creation process is Castlevania Nocturne. Now, I know before y'all say it, don't type it. Technically, Castlevania Nocturne is not an anime, but I think it's close enough for me to talk about it. I mean, it's definitely inspired by anime. Castlevania is a series that ran a couple years ago. It's an original Netflix series that it's inspired by the video game franchise of the same name, but they recently came out with like a sequel called Castlevania Nocturne. And this follows the story of Richter Belmont, who moved to France after the death of his mother, deep into the French Revolution, where a self-proclaimed vampire messiah starts to rise up during the chaos. Richter and family friend Maria and her mother, who are fighting for the revolution, meet two travelers from the Caribbean who are tracking down a vampire, which is where we meet instant fan favorite Annette. Annette, being a Black woman, was also a point of contention for Castlevania fans since she was remade or more likely given the same name as an NPC. This isn't the first time that Castlevania, the original anime, has taken liberties with the characters of the series, remix them until they're basically not even the same characters anymore. Even though they kept some things similar to the Annette of the game, like Annette having a romance with Richter, basically everything else was changed, and it made her character so much more, because Annette is her past. She is the love that she feels for Edward, who is a person who helped free her and who she also sees as a brother, as family. She is also the girl who lost her mother. She was a girl who was a slave and who freed herself and who fights to free others. She is a witch. She is the powers passed down to her from her ancestors, the Orisha, that has been passed down through songs and incantations, like through the generations of slavery to make it to her, which is so powerful to see. She is a representation of how vampires have spread across the world of Castlevania, leaving chaos and evil in their wake. She's also strong, but not cocky. She's brave, but still acknowledges her fear. And she's not just one or two characteristics, because instead of focusing in on her suffering because she was a slave, because her mother was killed, because of so many things, we instead get to see her finding freedom and community and empowerment outside of slavery as her own person. So yes, you may hear Black people say that they're tired of the slave narrative, but only because it's been mostly used to showcase Black people's suffering instead of highlighting their resilience and centering them instead of their trauma. Anyway, Annette is so much more than the character from the game that people wanted instead. Could the team behind Castlevania have chosen a different name for her? Yeah, I think so. But like with Isaac in Castlevania, who fans ended up loving despite gripes of also having his race changed in the beginning, we obviously know that Castlevania, the writing team at least behind Castlevania, clearly knows what they're doing. Annette provides representation in an authentic way that still aligns with the time period that the story is set in, allowing her existence to broaden Castlevania's world building, showing just how much control vampires have over the world. And this can also be said for other characters such as Olrox and even Drolta to an extent. I think if you want to hear more detailed information about why Annette's character was race swapped and why she's important, please go check out these videos. One is by Sisterpunk and the other by READUS. They do an incredible deep dive on Annette as a character, both in the game and in the anime original adaptation, and give you extra information that I could not provide here. Another Black character of the series that needs to be talked about, which is Drolta, who is also, I have to point out, a character that is in the Castlevania game as well. They are both Black women that were changed from their original designs of the game. But where I hear everyone shouting about how upset they are with Annette as a character, with Drolta, no, I have not heard a single peep about how they have changed this woman. I know this is all rhetorical because everyone is down bad for Drolta in Castlevania. Not much is known about Drolta besides that she's a merciless killer who worships the vampire messiah. But I guess what I appreciate about her, besides how hot she is, I'll take that aside for a second, is that she's also a Black woman in a position of power, like a really high position of power in a mostly white vampire hierarchy. She's also representative of vampires that come from different cultures that probably were turned into vampires by like the original vampires of Europe. Sometimes it's not much deeper than that. I'm down bad and I love her, and Drolta is hot. Like that's just what it is, okay? That's it. Sometimes that's all it is. Of course, I also need to address the beautiful character designs of this series. Again, Castlevania isn't an anime, but it is inspired by anime. Despite this, Annette is still given a black nose. Black noses are probably something really small that people probably don't really pay attention to in comparison to like lips and hair, because those things stand out a bit more. So it's nice to see that even in an anime-inspired medium, the Black girl's nose isn't reduced to like just a tiny little dot of a nose. Also, what was cool to see is Annette's lock journey, like seeing her grow out her locks in the process of learning about her backstory was kind of incredible. I don't think I've ever seen like a full walk journey of a character. Something I kind of wish we got to see for Carole's character in Carole and Tuesday, because she also has locks. I'm absolutely obsessed with Drolta's hair. Drolta's entire design is incredible. Also really fun because she's a vampire. She doesn't have to conform to like looking normal. She can be extra, and she definitely is. Like I love her eyes and her big giant fangs and of course her hair, which are like the ombre black to magenta curls. She actually has curly hair, which is a big deal. A vampire with curly hair who's hot. what? Also the fact that we got several versions of her in different outfits and hairstyles. Sometimes she was wearing braids and twists, or, you know, she had her in a bun. There was like, there's just so many different styles. Anyway, I could go on for days about the good and questionable aspects of Black women in anime, of Black women in animated mediums inspired by anime, but I've been talking for like an hour and a half now, and I need to stop. So despite how much I mostly praised the representation of Black women in these series, I think it goes without saying that I never truly look to anime for the nuanced type of representation that I want to see of Black womanhood. Even though sometimes we do get good stories and representation from these studios and from anime, we most often do not. But I do know that there is undeniably one way to get representation that rings truer to our own experiences than any other way. And this is by supporting artists and creatives who are trying to make their own stories. And one way to do that is by supporting independent projects like the incredible Kickstarter Wheels and Roses. Wheels and Roses is an animated young adult coming of age story about a group of magical girls who roller derby. A series inspired by magical girls like Sailor Moon, with an emphasis on highlighting LGBTQ teens in a medium inspired by anime. It's literally everything I could ever ask for when it comes to authentic representation. And the project is being funded right now on Kickstarter, so if you want to support Black stories created by Black LGBT folks, for Black LGBT folks, this is the best place to start. By the time this video comes out, you'll probably only have like 1 or 2 days to go support them. So please go support them if you can, or spread the word if you can, to help them reach their goal by the end of the month. After their Kickstarter ends, I'll make sure to change the link so you can still go support the creator. I truly think that the only way we'll receive accurate representation in the mediums that we love is by supporting creators who are making media that reflects both their and our own lived experiences. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you did, I appreciate you. I don't normally talk about things like this in my store, in my videos. I tend to like just kind of talk about storytelling and kind of lighter subjects, but this is something that was really important to me because I am a Black woman and I wanted to address this. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to support stories that help you feel represented. Black women in anime exists, Black women in animated mediums exist, Black women behind the scenes of these series exist, and I want to see more of them. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks very much for watching again, and I'll see you next time. Peace.